My name is Rachel Torres. And I never imagined that a family wedding would become the starting point for the most satisfying career moment of my life. My sister-in-law Madison had spent years treating me like I was invisible, dismissing my achievements, mocking my ambitions, and making every family gathering a stage for her superiority. But when she walked into that boardroom and stole my chair, she had no idea she was about to meet the woman who would change her entire career trajectory. This is the story of how I turned years of humiliation into the sweetest professional victory, proving that sometimes the best revenge is simply showing up as exactly who you've always been. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss incredible stories of revenge, justice, and personal redemption. Every day, we publish new stories of people who transformed pain into triumph. Turn on notifications. The fluorescent lights of Henderson and Associates' main conference room buzzed with that particular frequency that always gave me a headache during long meetings. I stood outside the glass doors, iPad clutched against my chest, watching the executive team filter in for what they believed was a routine quarterly review. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my expression remained perfectly calm, a skill I'd mastered over 28 years of being underestimated. Rachel, you ready for this? My mentor, Patricia Chen, appeared beside me, her silver hair pulled back in an elegant chignon, her sharp eyes assessing my tailored navy suit with approval. Once you walk through those doors, there's no going back. I've been ready for this my entire career, I replied, though my voice trembled slightly. I just never expected her to be sitting at that table. Through the glass, I could see Madison Pierce, my brother's wife, the woman who'd made every Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas, gathering a masterclass in condescensions, settling into the leather chair at the far end of the conference table. My chair, the one reserved for the incoming vice president of digital strategy. She had no idea. Let me back up. My name is Rachel Elizabeth Torres, and I grew up in a working-class neighborhood in Queens, New York, where success meant graduating high school and finding steady work. My parents, both immigrants from the Dominican Republic, cleaned office buildings at night so my brother Daniel and I could have opportunities they never had. While Daniel chose the reliable path, becoming an accountant, marrying well, settling in Connecticut, I gambled everything on a dream that seemed impossible from where we started. I put myself through NYU on scholarships and student loans, studying marketing and digital communications while working 3 part-time jobs. After graduation, I spent 5 years grinding through entry-level positions at various agencies, building a portfolio that showcased innovative campaigns most people twice my age couldn't conceive. I lived in a shoebox apartment in Washington Heights, $8 pizza for dinner more nights than I care to remember, and saved every penny I didn't absolutely need to spend. Then I met Madison. Daniel brought her home for Christmas when I was 23, fresh out of college and working my first real marketing job at a small boutique agency. Madison Pierce came from Greenwich, Connecticut, money the kind where summer is a verb and networking happens at yacht clubs. She had an MBA from Columbia, a position at a prestigious consulting firm, and the kind of effortless confidence that comes from never having to prove yourself to anyone. So, Rachel, she'd said that first Christmas, her smile perfectly calibrated between friendly and patronizing. Danny tells me you're doing some sort of social media thing. That's cute. Everyone needs hobbies. It's actually my career, I'd corrected gently. I develop digital marketing strategies for, oh, I'm sure it's very fulfilling. She'd interrupted, already turning to discuss real estate prices with my mother, as if my professional life was merely a phase I'd outgrow. That was 5 years ago. 5 years of family gatherings where Madison would ask about my little projects while discussing her own promotions, her clients, her networking events with managing partners and C-suite executives. 5 years of watching her exchange knowing looks with Daniel whenever I mentioned my work, as if they shared a private joke about my adorable delusions of professional success. The breaking point came at their wedding reception last summer. I'd just landed the biggest client of my career, a campaign for a major athletic brand that would eventually win 3 industry awards and put me on the map as one of the most innovative digital strategists in New York. I was glowing with accomplishment, finally ready to share genuine success with my family. Rachel's been working on something exciting, my mother announced proudly during the rehearsal dinner. Before I could stop her, tell everyone, Mia. I'd hesitated, but the encouragement in my mother's eyes made me continue. I landed the Apex Athletics account. It's a national campaign, and Apex Athletics. Madison had laughed not cruelly, but with genuine amusement, which somehow made it worse. Rachel, honey, that's a third-tier brand. When you work with actual premium clients, then you can call it exciting. I just closed a deal with a Fortune 50 company. That's what real achievement looks like." The table had gone silent. Daniel had touched Madison's hand in a gentle warning, but he hadn't contradicted her. He never did. I'd smiled, excused myself, and spent 20 minutes in the bathroom willing myself not to cry and ruin my makeup before the ceremony. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I was done trying to prove myself to Madison Pierce. I was done seeking validation from people who would never see me as anything more than Danny's little sister with her cute marketing hobby. I would build something so undeniable, so impressive, that even she couldn't dismiss it. What Madison didn't know, what none of them knew, was that my third-tier Apex Athletics campaign went viral 3 months after her wedding. The hashtag I created trended globally. The video content I produced generated 47 million views. Sales increased by 340% in the target demographic. Suddenly, I wasn't taking calls from small agencies anymore. I was fielding offers from major firms, being courted by headhunters representing the most prestigious marketing companies in the country, including Henderson and Associates, the very firm where Madison had recently accepted a position as senior strategy consultant. I'd interviewed for the vice president of digital strategy role under my professional name Rachel E. Torres, and the hiring committee never made the connection to Danny's little sister. Why would they? I'd built my reputation independently, under my own merit, with a portfolio that spoke louder than any family connection. When Patricia Chen, the firm's chief marketing officer, offered me the position, I'd almost mentioned the Madison connection, almost told her that one of her consultants was my sister-in-law, the woman who'd spent years dismissing my career as a hobby. But I didn't, because this wasn't about revenge, not exactly. It was about finally, being seen for who I actually was. "She took your chair," Patricia observed now, watching Madison through the glass. Bold move for someone who doesn't know she's about to report to the woman sitting in it. "Should I have told HR about the family connection?" I asked, suddenly uncertain. There's no conflict of interest, different departments, different reporting structures, but maybe Rachel. Patricia turned to face me fully, her expression serious. "You earned this position. Your campaign portfolio is extraordinary. Your strategic vision for digital integration is exactly what this firm needs to stay competitive. The fact that your sister-in-law also works here is irrelevant, unless you think it will affect your ability to do your job." I looked through the glass again at Madison, who was laughing at something one of the senior partners said, completely comfortable in a room where she assumed she belonged more than I ever could. "No," I said firmly. "It won't affect my ability to do my job, but it might affect hers." Patricia smiled. "Then let's make an entrance." The conference room fell silent as we entered. 12 faces turned toward U.S. senior partners, department heads, and strategy consultants, including Madison. I watched her eyes slide over me dismissively before returning to her phone, probably assuming I was Patricia's assistant. "Good morning, everyone," Patricia began, moving to the head of the table. "Thank you all for making time for this meeting. As you know, we've been searching for the right candidate to fill our Vice President of Digital Strategy position for the past 6 months. This role is critical to our firm's evolution, requiring someone who understands not just current digital trends, but can anticipate where the market is heading." Madison was still scrolling through her phone, only half listening. Several other consultants were doing the same, clearly not understanding the significance of this meeting. "We interviewed over 40 candidates," Patricia continued, including several internal applicants. "But ultimately, the choice was clear. We needed someone with a proven track record of innovative campaigns, someone who's already operating at a VP level in terms of strategic thinking and execution." I remained standing near the door, iPad still clutched against my chest, watching, waiting. "I'm pleased to introduce you all to Henderson and Associates' new Vice President of Digital Strategy, Rachel Torres." The room's energy shifted immediately. Several people sat up straighter. Phones disappeared. Madison's head snapped up, her eyes finding mine with confusion that rapidly morphed into shock. I walked to the head of the table, to the chair Madison had presumed to occupy, and smiled at her with all the professional warmth I could muster. "Maddie," I said sweetly, using the nickname I knew she hated, "I believe you're in my seat. What happens when the family member who's dismissed you for years suddenly has to respect your authority? When the person who treated your dreams as hobbies has to answer to the vision you built?" That's what I was about to find out. "And you, what would you do in my place?" The confusion in Madison's eyes lasted only a moment before her professional mask slammed back into place. She stood smoothly, gathering her materials. "Rachel," I didn't realize. Congratulations on your new position. Her voice was perfectly modulated, revealing nothing, but I saw the muscle jump in her jaw. Thank you, I replied, settling into the chair she'd vacated, still warm. I'm looking forward to working with everyone. Patricia speaks highly of the strategy team. The meeting proceeded with Patricia outlining the restructuring that would accompany my new role. Henderson and Associates was pivoting hard into digital integration, which meant every consultant including Madison would now have their strategies reviewed and approved through my department before presentation to clients. I watched Madison's expression carefully as Patricia explained the new workflow. Years of family gatherings had taught me to read her micro-expressions. The slight tightening around her eyes when she was angry, the way her left hand would clench when she felt threatened, the practiced smile that meant she was calculating her next move. All three were happening now. Rachel will be meeting individually with each of you over the next 2 weeks, Patricia explained, to assess current client strategies and identify opportunities for digital enhancement. Her background in viral marketing and social integration is exactly what we need to stay ahead of the curve. Viral marketing, Madison repeated. And there it was, the subtle condescension wrapped in professional curiosity. That's quite different from strategic consulting. How do you plan to bridge that gap? Every eye in the room turned to me. This was the first test, and Madison knew it. I leaned forward slightly, meeting her gaze directly. That's an excellent question, Madison. The gap you're referring to is actually the opportunity. Traditional consulting focuses on what worked yesterday. Digital strategy anticipates what will work tomorrow. My job isn't to replace strategic thinking. It's to amplify it with channels and methodologies that reach audiences where they actually live, which is increasingly online. I pulled up a presentation on the main screen. For example, I've reviewed the Thomason financial pitch your team presented last month. Solid traditional approach: newspaper ads, sponsored events, professional networking. But Thomason's target demographic is millennials approaching their prime earning years. 73% of that audience won't see a newspaper ad. 89% skip sponsored events, but 94% will watch a TikTok video if it appears authentic and relevant. The senior partner, who'd been on Madison's pitch team, leaned forward. You're suggesting we use TikTok for a financial services company. I'm suggesting we meet clients where their customers are, I corrected, which sometimes means TikTok, sometimes means LinkedIn, sometimes means podcast sponsorships or Instagram stories or platforms that don't even exist yet. The channel matters less than understanding the psychology of digital engagement. I clicked to another slide. The Apex Athletics campaign Madison had dismissed as third tier at her wedding. This campaign generated 47 million organic views, increased sales by 340%, and won 3 industry awards. Not because the product was premium, but because the strategy understood how to create authentic digital moments that audiences wanted to share. The room had gone very quiet. Several people were taking notes. That was you. The question came from Marcus Webb, one of the senior partners. The Run Your Truth campaign. Rachel Torres. R.E. Torres. I didn't make the connection. Most people don't, I said simply. I prefer my work to speak for itself. Madison's face had gone carefully blank, the expression she wore when she was furious but couldn't show it. I knew that look from every family gathering where someone had paid attention to my accomplishments instead of hers. The meeting continued for another hour, covering restructuring details, timeline expectations, and integration protocols. I kept my tone professional, my suggestions collaborative, my authority quiet but absolute. This wasn't about humiliating Madison, it was about establishing my role and expertise with everyone in the room. When Patricia finally dismissed everyone, Madison lingered, pretending to organize her materials. I knew she'd wait until we were alone. We'd performed this dance at enough family events for me to recognize the pattern. The last consultant filed out. The door clicked shut. Rachel. Madison's voice was tight. We need to talk about this situation. What situation? I asked mildly, packing up my iPad. I was hired for a position I'm qualified for. You work in a different department. I don't see a situation. Don't play games. The professional veneer cracked slightly. You know exactly what I mean. This is going to be incredibly awkward at family gatherings. Why? I looked at her directly. We're both professionals. We both work at the same firm in different capacities. Unless you think there's a reason it should be awkward. Her eyes flashed. Did you take this job to get back at me? Because of some petty grudge from my wedding? The accusation hung between us. For a moment, I considered letting her believe it, letting her think she mattered enough to dictate my career choices. but that would give her power she didn't deserve. Madison, I took this job because I'm excellent at what I do, because Henderson and Associates offered me an opportunity to shape digital strategy at one of the most prestigious firms in New York, and because the compensation package was extraordinary. I picked up my iPad, moved toward the door. The fact that you also work here honestly didn't factor into my decision-making process at all. That landed harder than any accusation could have. The idea that she wasn't even a consideration that my entire career trajectory had happened independently of her opinion was clearly more devastating than any revenge plot. I just think, she tried again, given our family connection, you should have mentioned it during the hiring process. It's a potential conflict if there is no conflict of interest. I interrupted firmly. Different departments, different reporting structures. I checked with HR and legal before accepting. But if you're uncomfortable working at the same firm as your sister-in-law, I understand. Patricia mentioned you have excellent references. I'm sure you could find another position easily. Her mouth opened, then closed. She couldn't quit not after only 6 months, not without looking like she was running away from competition, and she definitely couldn't admit that she was uncomfortable having me in a position of authority. Of course I'm not quitting, she said coldly. I just wanted to establish some professional boundaries. At work, we're colleagues. At family events, we're family. Those worlds should stay separate. Agreed, I said. At work, you're Madison Pierce, Senior Strategy Consultant. At family events, you're my brother's wife. I'm perfectly capable of maintaining those boundaries. Are you? Before she could answer, my phone buzzed a text from my brother Daniel. Madison just called. Said you got some new job at her firm. Why didn't you tell me? Mom's freaking out, thinking there's going to be drama. Call me. I looked up at Madison, who had clearly messaged him the moment the meeting ended. Already told my brother. I see. He's my husband, she said defensively. I tell him everything. Then you should probably tell him the full story, I suggested, including the part where I earned this position through my own merit, where I've been building toward this level of success for 5 years, and where the only drama would come from someone who can't handle their sister-in-law being successful. I left her standing in the conference room and headed to my new office, a corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Madison Avenue, the kind of office Madison herself had probably coveted when she started at the firm. My assistant, Jordan, efficient, sharp, and refreshingly direct, was already setting up my workspace. Ms. Chen wants to see you at 3 p.m. to review the quarterly digital audit, he informed me, and you have 6 meeting requests from department heads who want to discuss integration strategies. Should I start scheduling? Please, I said, looking around the office that represented everything I'd worked for. And Jordan, that woman who was in the conference room earlier, Madison Pierce, Senior Strategy Consultant, hired 6 months ago, he confirmed, pulling up her file on his tablet. Solid performance reviews, good client rapport, works primarily on financial services accounts. She's also my sister-in-law, I said directly. There's no conflict of interest. I checked with legal, but I want you to be aware in case it becomes relevant. Jordan's eyebrow rose slightly. Noted. Should I anticipate any complications? Probably, I admitted, but nothing we can't handle professionally. That evening, I finally called Daniel back. He answered on the first ring. Rachel, what the hell? You took a job at Madison's firm and didn't tell anyone. I took a VP position at a prestigious marketing firm, I corrected. The fact that Madison also works there is coincidental. Coincidental. His voice rose. You really expect me to believe that? Danny, I interviewed at 6 firms. I accepted the best offer. I didn't even know Madison worked at Henderson until after I'd already gone through 3 rounds of interviews. And when I found out, I checked with HR and legal to make sure there was no conflict. This is legitimate, earned success, not some scheme to embarrass your wife. Silence on the other end. Then, quieter. Mom's worried this is going to cause problems. The only problem would be if people can't treat me like the qualified professional I am, I said firmly. I've spent 5 years building a career while everyone at family gatherings acted like I was playing with toys. Well, those toys just earned me a 6-figure salary and a corner office. If that makes people uncomfortable, that's their issue, not mine. More silence. Finally, she called you third tier at our wedding. I should have said something. The admission caught me off guard. What, when she dismissed your Apex campaign? I should have defended you. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. He sighed. Madison's used to being the most successful person in the room. It's how she was raised. And I let her treat you like you didn't matter because it was easier than challenging her. Danny, I'm not making excuses, he continued. I'm explaining. And I'm saying I'm sorry. You've always been brilliant, Ratch. I just let her convince me that her kind of success was more real than yours. Tears pricked my eyes unexpectedly. Thank you for saying that. Just try to be patient with her. Okay, this is going to be a big adjustment. I'll be professional, I promised. That's all I can guarantee. After we hung up, I stood at my apartment window looking out at the Queens neighborhood I'd grown up in. Just visible from my new place in Long Island City. I'd moved here a month ago, close enough to my roots. Far enough to represent progress. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Patricia. Excellent handling of the meeting today. Madison requested a transfer to our Boston office. I denied it. She needs to learn that talent matters more than tenure. See you tomorrow. I smiled. The game had only just begun. Over the next 2 weeks, I met individually with every consultant and department head, reviewing current strategies and identifying integration opportunities. Most people were collaborative, even excited about the digital innovations I proposed. A few were resistant to change, but nothing I couldn't manage with patience and clear value propositions. Madison was conspicuously absent from my schedule. Jordan informed me she'd postponed her integration meeting 3 times, citing client emergencies and scheduling conflicts. Should I insist? Jordan asked. No, I decided. Let her come when she's ready. The standoff broke unexpectedly during a firm-wide presentation I gave on emerging digital trends. Madison sat in the back row, arms crossed, her expression carefully neutral. When I opened the floor for questions, her hand went up immediately. Yes, Madison, your emphasis on viral content and social media engagement is interesting, she said, her tone professional but edged with challenge. But doesn't it risk undermining the serious, established reputation our clients have built? Financial services firms, legal practices, medical groups they've spent decades building trust through traditional channels. Aren't we risking that credibility by chasing trends? Every eye in the room turned to me. This was the fundamental divide between traditional consulting and digital strategy. And Madison had framed it perfectly to make my approach sound frivolous. Another excellent question, I said calmly. And you're absolutely right that credibility is earned over time through consistent, reliable service. Digital strategy doesn't replace that, it amplifies it by making that credibility visible to audiences who would never encounter it through traditional channels. I pulled up a case study. Last year, I worked with a law firm specializing in immigration services. 70 years of impeccable reputation, primarily built through word of mouth and community presence. But their target clients, first-generation immigrants navigating complex legal systems, weren't finding them through newspaper ads or networking events. They were searching online, asking questions in Facebook groups, watching YouTube videos about the immigration process. The room leaned forward, interested. We created a digital strategy that showcased the firm's expertise through educational content, short videos explaining common immigration questions, blog posts demystifying legal processes, Instagram posts celebrating client success stories with permission. Within 6 months, consultation requests increased by 280%. The content went viral in immigrant communities because it was genuinely helpful, not because it was trendy. I looked directly at Madison. The question isn't whether to maintain credibility or embrace digital trends. It's how to use digital tools to extend the credibility you've already built to the people who need it most. Traditional and digital aren't opposites, they're complements. The room erupted in questions, but I noticed Madison had gone quiet, her expression thoughtful rather than challenging. After the presentation, she approached me. Can we schedule that integration meeting? I think I've been resistant to change. It was the closest she'd come to an admission. Of course, I said. How's Friday afternoon? Perfect. She hesitated, then added quietly, that case study, the immigration firm. That was really good work, Rachel. Thank you, I said, matching her tone. I'm not here to undermine what you do, Maddie. I'm here to enhance it. Something shifted between us, not friendship, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of mutual professional respect. Friday's meeting was different from our previous interactions. Madison came prepared with questions, not challenges. She showed me her current client portfolio and asked genuine questions about digital integration opportunities. Thomason Financial, I said, pulling up her file. You mentioned they're struggling to reach younger investors. What if we created a podcast series? Money Moves. Short, 15-minute episodes covering financial literacy topics millennials care about. Student loans, investing basics, retirement planning for people who can't imagine retiring. Thomason sponsors it. We get financial advisors from their firm to host or guest star, and we promote it through strategic social media. Madison was taking notes furiously. That could actually work. They've been wanting to break into the under 40 market but didn't know how. Because they were using over 40 methods, I said, it's not about abandoning traditional approaches, it's about recognizing that different audiences require different entry points. We worked for 2 hours, and by the end, Madison had digital enhancement strategies for 3 of her major clients. As she gathered her materials, she paused. I owe you an apology, she said abruptly. Multiple apologies, actually, for how I've treated your career, for what I said at my wedding, for a lot of things. I set down my pen, giving her my full attention. I grew up in a world where success looked one way, she continued. Ivy League degrees, traditional corporate ladders, specific kinds of prestige. When you talked about social media marketing and viral campaigns, I genuinely couldn't see it as legitimate because it didn't fit my narrow definition of what mattered. And now, I asked quietly. Now I'm sitting in your corner office asking for your professional help, she said wryly, which is humbling and deserved and, honestly, kind of terrifying. Why terrifying? Because you have every reason to make this difficult for me, she admitted, to use your position to get back at me for years of dismissiveness, and instead, you're being professional and helpful and making me look like even more of an ass. I couldn't help but laugh. Madison, I didn't take this job to get revenge on you. I took it because I earned it. Yes, your presence here adds a layer of personal complexity, but my focus is on doing excellent work, not on settling scores. That's somehow worse, she said, but she was almost smiling. If you were petty, I could understand it. This professional grace thing is much harder to process. Welcome to how I felt at family gatherings for 5 years, I pointed out. She winced. Fair. So, what now? How do we navigate this? Professionally, I'm your VP. You're my consultant. We collaborate. We challenge each other respectfully. We both do excellent work. Personally, we work on building something that isn't based on assumptions and dismissals. That sounds reasonable, she said. And at the next family gathering, we'll figure it out, I said. But Maddie, no more calling my work cute or third tier. And I won't mention how satisfying it is to have you asking for my professional opinion. She laughed, genuine surprised laughter. Deal. As she left, I felt something settle that I hadn't even realized was unsettled. This wasn't the dramatic confrontation I'd half expected. The public humiliation that would have felt satisfying in fantasy but hollow in reality. This was better to professionals finding a way forward. 2 family members beginning to see each other clearly. That weekend, Daniel called with an invitation to Sunday dinner at their place in Connecticut. Madison suggested it, he said. I think she wants to start over. The dinner was surprisingly comfortable. Madison's Greenwich home was exactly as I'd imagined, magazine perfect with subtle wealth in every detail. But the conversation was different from previous gatherings. When Madison asked about my work, she actually listened. When I